Prairie farming, overview and master planning for livestock and poultry. Care introduction, life and farming. On the prairie, prairie farming represents one of the most natural, resilient and sustainable forms of agriculture when it is managed correctly. Vast open grasslands, wide skies, strong winds and seasonal extremes define life on the prairie. Unlike small-scale backyard farming, prairie farms rely on balance between land, animals, climate, and human effort. This guide is designed to provide a realistic, practical, and experience-based approach to building and managing a prairie farm focused on livestock and poultry. In this first part, we will explore the foundation of prairie farming, understanding the land, climate, water sources, animal suitability, and long-term planning. Without a strong foundation, even the best livestock breeds or feeding techniques will fail. A prairie farm is not about forcing nature to obey. It is about working with nature, learning its rhythm, and adapting daily practices to seasonal changes. Understanding prairie climate and geography. Climate characteristics prairie regions typically experience: hot summers with strong sunlight, cold winters with freezing temperatures and snow, low to moderate rainfall, strong, consistent winds, rapid weather changes. These conditions directly affect animal health, feed availability, shelter design, water management, seasonal workload. Farmers must accept that the prairie climate is unpredictable. Droughts, heat waves, cold snaps, and storms are part of life. Successful prairie farms are designed to withstand these challenges rather than fight them. Soil and grassland. Ecology: prairie soil is often rich in organic matter, but may vary greatly across different zones of the land. Native grasses play a crucial role in preventing soil erosion, retaining moisture, providing natural forage, supporting beneficial insects and microorganisms. Overgrazing is one of the most common mistakes in prairie farming. Once native grasses are damaged, recovery can take years. Rotational grazing and rest periods are essential to maintain long-term productivity. Choosing the right livestock and poultry for prairie conditions. Livestock, suitable for prairie farming. Not all animals thrive on the prairie. The most suitable livestock typically include cattle, beef and dairy breeds adapted to open grazing. Sheep, goats, horses for work or breeding. Buffalo or bison in advanced models. These animals are naturally adapted to long-distance grazing. Variable forage quality. Outdoor, living with minimal shelter. Seasonal temperature extremes. The key principle is hardiness over productivity. An animal that produces slightly less but survives harsh winters and droughts is far more valuable than a high-yield breed that requires constant intervention. Poultry on the prairie. Poultry can thrive on prairie farms when properly protected. Common choices include chickens, dual-purpose breeds preferred, ducks and geese, especially near water sources. Turkeys require more management. Prairie poultry systems often combine free-range daytime grazing, secure nighttime housing. Mobile coops to prevent disease buildup. Predator pressure is higher on open land, so fencing, guardian animals, and proper coop design are critical. Water, the lifeline of the prairie farm. 3-point. Identifying reliable water sources. Water availability determines the scale of any prairie farm. Common water sources include natural ponds, wells, rainwater collection systems, seasonal streams. Each source has advantages and risks. For example, ponds may freeze in winter or dry in drought, while wells require energy and maintenance. A successful prairie farm never relies on a single water source. Water distribution systems. Efficient water distribution reduces labor and improves animal health. Common methods include gravity-fed troughs, solar-powered pumps, portable water tanks for rotational grazing. Clean water access reduces disease, improves feed efficiency, and encourages consistent grazing patterns. Farm layout and zoning. 4.1. Core zones of a prairie. A well-planned prairie farm is divided into functional zones. Living zone, farmhouse, storage, tools. Livestock housing zone, barns, sheds, winter shelters. Grazing zone, open pasture divided into paddocks, Poultry zone, mobile or semi-fixed coops. Feed storage zone, hay barns, silos. Water, infrastructure zone. This zoning reduces wasted movement, improves efficiency, and allows easier expansion. Wind orientation and shelter belts wind is one of the prairie's most powerful forces. Strategic planting of trees or building windbreaks. Reduces cold stress in winter, prevents heat exhaustion in summer, lowers feed consumption, improves weight. Gain shelter belts should be planned years in advance, as trees take time to mature. Housing philosophy, simple, strong, functional 5.1. Livestock, shelters prairie. Livestock shelters should prioritize protection from wind and precipitation, good ventilation, dry bedding, easy cleaning. Overly complex barns are expensive and unnecessary. Many prairie animals prefer open-sided shelters that allow natural airflow. Poultry housing, poultry coops on the prairie must be predator-proof, provide insulation in winter, offer shade in summer, allow easy relocation if mobile poorly. Designed co-op can wipe out an entire flock overnight. Seasonal planning and workload management 6.1, spring calving and lambing season. Pasture recovery, fence repair. Disease prevention spring is the most labor-intensive season and requires constant observation. 2. Summer, rotational grazing. Hay production, heat stress management, water monitoring summer. Success depends on preparation done in spring. 3. Autumn, hay storage. Breeding management, infrastructure repairs winter feed. Planning mistakes in autumn are paid for during winter. 4. Winter feeding, stored forage. Snow management, cold protection. Animal health monitoring, winter tests the strength of your planning more than any other season. Human mindset and daily discipline, prairie farming is not a quick profit business. It requires patience, observation, consistency. Respect for animals and land daily routines build stability. Skipping small tasks often leads to major problems later. Successful prairie farmers develop the habit of walking the land, observing animal behavior, checking fences, listening to the wind, and adjusting plans as needed. Common beginner mistakes in prairie farming: overstocking livestock, ignoring rotational grazing, underestimating winter severity, relying on one water source. Choosing high-maintenance breeds, poor predator control. Avoiding these mistakes can save years of struggle and financial loss. Conclusion: building a strong foundation. This first part establishes the mindset and structure required for a successful prairie farm. Before focusing on feeding techniques, breeding strategies, or productivity goals, the farmer must understand the land and its limits. A prairie farm built on respect for nature, careful planning, and disciplined daily care can thrive for generations. Cattle farming on the prairie: breeds, feeding, grazing, and health management. Introduction. The central role of cattle on the prairie. Cattle are the backbone of most prairie farming systems. Their natural grazing behavior, ability to convert grass into protein, and adaptability to wide open landscapes make them ideal for prairie conditions. However, raising cattle on the prairie is not simply a matter of letting them roam freely. Success depends on breed selection, grazing management, seasonal feeding strategies, and careful attention to animal health. This part focuses on practical, experience-based cattle management designed for real prairie conditions, not industrial feedlots. The goal is resilience, animal welfare, and long-term productivity. Choosing the right cattle breeds for prairie conditions. Principles of breed selection. On the prairie, hardiness matters more than maximum output. A breed that survives harsh winters, droughts, and strong winds with minimal intervention is more valuable than a high-production breed that requires constant support. Key traits to prioritize: cold and heat tolerance, strong immune system, efficient. Grass conversion, calm temperament, strong maternal instincts. 2. Common prairie-adapted beef breeds: Angus, excellent cold tolerance, good meat quality, strong grazing ability. Hereford, hardy, calm, efficient grazers. Charolais, fast growth, Suited for open grasslands. Shorthorn, dual-purpose potential. Adaptable crossbreeding is common on prairie farms because it improves vigor and resilience. Dairy cattle on the prairie. Dairy farming on the prairie requires more infrastructure, but is possible with hardy breeds such as Jersey, cold-adapted lines. Brown Swiss dual-purpose crosses. Dairy cattle need stronger winter shelters and higher quality feed than beef cattle. Prairie grazing systems. Let the grass work for you. Understanding natural grazing behavior. Cattle are natural grazers, not browsers. They prefer short to medium height grass, frequent movement. Clean forage areas, allowing cattle to continuously graze one pasture leads to overgrazing, soil compaction, weed dominance, reduced pasture recovery. Rotational grazing on the UEC. Prairie rotational grazing divides pasture into paddocks and moves cattle regularly. Benefits include healthier grass regrowth, improved soil fertility, better weight gain, reduced parasite load. Typical rotation. Graze 3-7 days per paddock. Rest pasture 30-60 days depending on season. Adjust stocking density based on rainfall. 2.3. Seasonal grazing adjustments. Spring, short grazing periods to protect young grass. Summer, longer rest periods during drought. Autumn, stockpiling grass for early winter. Grazing. Prairie farmers often rely on standing forage to reduce winter feed costs. Feeding strategies. Throughout the year. 3. Spring and summer feeding. During the growing season, grass should provide 70-90% of nutritional needs, essential minerals through supplementation. Mineral blocks or loose minerals are critical due to prairie soil deficiencies. 2. Autumn feeding and preparation. Autumn is the transition season. Key actions include gradually introducing hay, monitoring body condition scores. Separating animals by nutritional needs. Cows must enter winter in good condition, not overweight or undernourished. Winter feeding on the prairie. Winter is the most challenging season. Common feeds include grass hay, alfalfa hay, silage straw as supplemental roughage. Feeding strategies. Wind-protected feeding areas. Feeding during warmer daylight hours, reducing feed waste with proper bale placement. Cold increases energy needs. A hungry cow cannot stay warm. Water management for cattle. 4.1. Water requirements. Adult cattle consume 30-60 litres per day in summer, less in winter, but still essential. Cold water reduces intake, so keeping water accessible is critical. Winter water solutions. Common prairie solutions include heated water troughs, solar or wind-powered heaters. Regular ice breaking. Dehydration in winter often goes unnoticed, but causes serious health problems. Shelter and weather protection. Natural shelter use. Cattle are more cold resistant than many people assume. They tolerate cold well if they stay dry. Wind exposure is reduced. Adequate feed is available. Natural shelter options. Tree lines, hills and natural terrain. Man-made windbreaks. When barns are necessary, barns are recommended for calving. Season sick or injured animals. Extreme weather events. Overhousing cattle can increase respiratory disease if ventilation is poor. Breeding and reproductive management. Breeding timing. Prairie farmers often time calving for late spring, grass availability, reduced winter labor, lower calf mortality, bull versus artificial insemination, natural breeding, simple, low-tech, reliable AI, genetic improvement, but requires skill and timing. Small prairie farms often prefer natural breeding for simplicity. Calving management. Key practices. Observe, but do not over-intervene. Keep calving areas dry and clean. Monitor calves for early nursing. Strong maternal cows reduce labor dramatically. Health management and disease prevention. 7.1. Preventive care. Prevention is cheaper than treatment. Essentials include vaccination programs, parasite control. Mineral supplementation. A consistent schedule matters more than expensive products. Common prairie cattle health issues, respiratory diseases, foot rot, bloat, internal parasites. Calving complications, early detection saves lives. 3. Observational skills, healthy cattle. Graze calmly, chew cud, maintain distance but stay alert. Have smooth coats. Changes in behavior are often the first warning sign. Handling, safety, and stress reduction. Low-stress cattle, handling stress reduces. Weight gain, immune response. Fertility ewes, calm movement. Proper fencing, predictable routines. Cattle remember bad handling experiences. Human safety. Prairie cattle are large animals. Safety rules include never turn your back on bulls. Be cautious during calving. Use solid gaits and chutes. Experience reduces risk, but respect is essential. Conclusion. Building a resilient cattle system. Cattle farming on the prairie succeeds when the farmer respects both the animals and the land. Grass, water, wind, and seasons are not obstacles. They are tools when used correctly. By choosing hardy breeds, managing grazing carefully, preparing for winter early, and prioritizing animal health, prairie cattle farming becomes sustainable and rewarding. Sheep and goat farming on the prairie. Care, feeding, breeding, and disease control. Introduction. Small ruminants in prairie farming systems. Sheep and goats play a unique and valuable role in prairie farming systems. While cattle dominate large grasslands, sheep and goats allow farmers to diversify production, improve pasture utilization, and reduce weeds and brush. When managed properly, small ruminants are highly efficient, resilient, and profitable animals for prairie environments. However, sheep and goats are also more sensitive than cattle. They require closer observation, better parasite control, and stronger predator protection. This part provides a practical, field-tested approach to raising sheep and goats on the prairie with long-term sustainability in mind. Understanding the natural behavior of sheep and goats. 1. Grazers versus browsers. Sheep and goats differ significantly in how they use the land. Sheep are primarily grazers. They prefer short grasses and stay close to the ground. Goats are browsers. They prefer shrubs, weeds, and woody plants. This difference allows mixed grazing systems, better pasture balance, reduced weed pressure, improved land health. On prairie farms, combining sheep and goats with cattle can dramatically improve pasture. Realization. Point 2. Herd and flock behavior. Sheep are highly social and flock-oriented. They feel stress when isolated and rely on group movement for safety. Goats are more independent, curious, and intelligent, but they also form strong social bonds. Understanding these behaviors helps prevent escape attempts. Stress-related illness, injuries, and losses. Choosing breeds suitable for prairie conditions. Point. Prairie-adapted sheep breeds key traits to prioritize: cold tolerance, strong mothering ability, disease resistance, good grazing efficiency. Common breeds include Rambouillet, Dorset, Suffolk, Katahdin, hair sheep, low shearing needs. Hair sheep are increasingly popular on prairie farms due to reduced labor. Prairie-adapted goat breeds. Popular prairie goat types: Boar, meat production; Kiko, hardy, parasite-resistant; Spanish goats, low maintenance; dairy breeds require more shelter and feed. Hardiness and parasite resistance should always outweigh rapid growth or milk volume. Housing and shelter for sheep and goats. 3. Shelter philosophy. Sheep and goats require protection from wind and moisture, dry bedding. Good ventilation, they tolerate cold, well when dry but suffer quickly in damp conditions. Simple shelters, such as 3-sided sheds, portable shelters, windbreak fences are often more effective than enclosed barns. Point 2. Flooring and bedding, preferred bedding materials, straw, dry grass, wood shavings, limited use. Wet bedding is a major cause of foot rot, respiratory disease, parasite buildup. 4. Feeding and nutrition on the prairie. 4.1. Grazing. Management. Sheep and goats are more selective grazers than cattle. They require short grazing periods, longer pasture rest. Lower stocking density, rotational grazing reduces parasite load and improves forage quality. Seasonal feeding. Spring and summer. Primarily pasture-based. Autumn, gradual hay introduction. Winter. Hay-based diets with energy supplements. High-quality hay is critical, especially for pregnant and lactating females. 3. Minerals and supplements sheep and goats require.